Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we clean up the bay window flower bed. So let's go. It is the middle of November here in New Hampshire. I want to tackle this flower bed. It really needs to be cleaned up. So I figured I'd bring you along and I'm going to show you the plants that are in here and how I tackle them when it comes to cleaning them up for the fall time. I have some beautiful Annabelle Hydrangeas here. I prefer to cut off the blooms because if I leave these nice big blooms on here, what can happen is as soon as we get heavy loads of snow, heavy loads of ice, they will weigh down on the branches and they can snap them. Now I'm not going to do a full-on pruning job here. All I'm going to be doing is deadheading, which means just removing the spent blooms. I'm going to use my hand pruners and I'm going to cut right below where the flowers are. If I wanted to use these flowers in an arrangement of some kind, I could go ahead and cut somewhere down below on the stalk or the stem. You don't have to do this job if you live in an area where you don't experience heavy snow or heavy ice. But if you do live in an area like I do, you want to make sure you're not doing this to the wrong kind of hydrangea. If you have a panicle hydrangea or a smooth hydrangea, those are hydrangeas that you can go ahead and deadhead this time of year. And if you're not sure what kind of hydrangea you have, I wouldn't even touch it. Part of the reason I'm also not cutting a little bit further down on these hydrangeas is I want to be able to take some hardwood cuttings off of my hydrangeas. And I like to do that as soon as I know that my hydrangeas are dormant. And I have videos showing my process on how I take hardwood cuttings on hydrangeas. What I'll do is put a link to those videos down below as well as up above. I have some coneflower or echinacea that I could leave up if I wanted to, but at this point in the season, the birds have munched on the seeds, so I feel comfortable going ahead and cutting back my coneflower. If you want to leave them up for the beneficial insects to nest in the stems, you can do that. But I like to cut mine down because I have many other plants that the beneficial insects can nest in during the cold winter months. One way I can do this job is to use my hand pruners again, come right into the base and cut. I'm only cutting back the flower stems. I want to leave the base of the plant, which are the leaves at the bottom, intact. And the reason I'm doing that is these leaves that are here will protect the crown of the plant during the winter months. And then I can just come in with my pruners and cut these into smaller pieces. That way they fit nicely in this bucket. And not only that, anything that I'm cutting up today, I can use in my compost pile. And the smaller the pieces are, the quicker they'll break down. Another tool that has been a huge time saver for me is this one here. It's a miniature battery-powered hedge clipper. Right there are some more coneflowers, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to cut them back quickly. You can be safe and wear ear protection or eye protection. It's really up to you. But the biggest thing is you have to be very, very careful with a tool like this. You don't want to lose your fingers. And it's done just like that. That was just so quick that I think I'm going to tackle this area here. There isn't a lot, but we have some iris that you can wait until the spring if you want to cut it back, or you can cut it back in the fall. Since we're in this area and we're cleaning up, we might as well cut the iris plants back. So we have some iris plants here, another grouping over here, and then that plant over there is a lupine. With these iris, I'm finding it's easier to hold up the leaves. Again, I need to be very careful when I cut though. So we're basically working from the center out. The next plant that I want to tackle is right here. This is Veronica or Speedwell, and that's another plant that I do like to cut back all the way down to the ground. So other than that grouping there, we have some more over here. And as we make our way around the bay window bed, there is another grouping over here. And then a couple of more groupings, one here and then one in the back over there. The plant that I don't like to cut back this time of year is this one here. This is Montauk daisy. The reason I don't like to cut it back is, to be honest with you, it's a very easy plant to propagate from cuttings in the springtime. So I'm going to leave the plant as is, let it sit through the winter, knowing that the snow can damage it a little bit, but it'll be fine. And then in the spring, I'll show you how I propagate this plant from cuttings. I do have videos that show that process. I'll put it down in the description. But let's go ahead and start cutting back some of the Speedwell or Veronica. Once I do that initial cut, then I come back in and do another cut just to get it right down to the ground level. Since this variety of Speedwell does not have any leaves at the base of the plant, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, you can always leave the whole plant as is and cut it back in the springtime. Or you could come in right now and put a layer of mulch or shredded leaves on top to protect the crown of the plant. I've never had an issue. The plants always come back for me just fine. And our winters get pretty cold here, but if you're worried about that, you can always protect the crown of the plant. Once I'm done cutting back these few clumps that are left of the Speedwell, I'll show you what's next. Next up are a whole bunch of Stella d'Oro daylilies, and not only are they right behind me, but they wrap all the way around the other side of this bed. In previous years, I've come in with something like hand pruners and I've cut them back. That is such a tedious job when you have this many Stella d'Oro daylilies. Another option is to come in and just basically rip pieces out, because if you look at them, they look pretty dead right now, and it's a great time for me to come in and do that. I've also taken a rake to them and raked them out, but let's go ahead and use the hedge clippers and let's see if we can tackle this job pretty quickly. So I do want to mention that I had already cut these back probably a couple of months ago. So the tufts are not as tall. You have to be really careful. If you feel more comfortable, come in with your hand pruners and cut at the base, or take a rake and rake this out. The big thing is you don't want to leave daylily foliage here all winter long. It's better to cut back your daylily foliage in the fall. It's just healthier for the plant, and by leaving the foliage here all winter, you can introduce disease and pests. But I'm going to use this tool and I'm just going to go as far down as I can. And then I'm going to come back and sweep the other way. I can go ahead and remove as much of the material as I can. Let's go after this one now. And it will sometimes get stuck, and that's okay. Just shake off the material. Now we can go ahead and pick up anything that we cut off. So we did these two over here together. I'm going to continue moving along here because I have quite a few to do. It's just repetitive. It's the same process, but it gives you an idea of how many daylilies I have around this flower bed. I'm at the halfway point, and I just wanted to show you what a difference it makes. I mean, it just looks so much tidier, so much cleaner on this side. So I just need to continue on, and I'm so happy to finally get this done. We are on to our last plant in this flower bed. Hooray! It is the Cranesbill Geranium. It's a perennial hardy geranium. Now, I will be cutting it back, but I'm going to leave some of the bottom leaves intact because I want to protect the crown on this plant. In case you're wondering, which plants do we protect the crowns on and which ones don't we? You can always do an internet search and look that up. I just use my best judgment. I don't really look it up on the internet. If a plant already has a bunch of leaves at the bottom of it, I leave the leaves there and I cut the top stems. However, I have done research as well to see which ones I should be cutting back and not leaving the bottom leaves. Those usually include your daylilies, your hosta plants, any plant that has powdery mildew or disease, which for me, that includes my bee balm. And then even peonies, usually you want to cut those down because oftentimes those get hit with some sort of disease. There might be other plants out there, but those are the ones that I like to cut back all the way to the ground in my garden. At the very base, you can see the green foliage that's coming through. I don't want to cut it way down to that level. I just want to basically get rid of all this sticky growth that's on the top, all these pieces of sticks. And that's it. It's just a matter of trying to tidy and clean things up. And as I was cutting, if I miss a piece here, I can take my hand pruners and I can just cut that back. And then what will happen is in the springtime, I'm sure I might have to come back and clean this up a little bit more. But otherwise, this is good to go. So what will happen in the spring is this is going to push out a whole bunch of new growth. And all these sticks that are here, you probably won't even notice them anymore. There is just something so satisfying about cleaning up a flower bed and putting it to rest for the fall and winter months. There really isn't a whole lot to be done now at this point in terms of cleanup. It's all been done, and the only thing that I'll have to do in the springtime is, like I said, just come in and cut back the Montauk daisy. Actually, I like the color of it. I think that the leaves look really pretty this time of year. And to be honest with you, I'd like to see if I can collect the seeds off of it. So I'll have to check for those. But the daylilies look so nice and tidy, as do the geraniums. Everything looks much cleaner now. And the good thing is in the spring, when everything starts to push out growth, I don't need to rush out here and cut anything back because sometimes that's half the challenge, is coming out and cutting back perennials and doing it quick enough before the new growth starts to push through. And this is just the other side of the bed, looking nice and clean. I just want to show you a few perennials that I didn't bother to cut back. One of them is Spirea. I have a number of Spirea. They're pretty small. I have just divided them over time, and I've decided to leave them as is. I usually do. I don't like to cut them back because they're pretty small still. I have one here, and I have another one right there. And then actually, I have a few more down there. They're very, very small. And as we continue this way, there are some underneath the Montauk daisy. I want to thank you for joining me as we cleaned up this flower bed. It is starting to get really cold here in New Hampshire, but there are still jobs to be done in the garden. And I hope that doing these jobs helps you in some way As always, if you have any questions or comments, I love hearing from you. Please drop them down below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.